Fully agree. We will do one final round of questions and then we will wrap up. Mr. Woodard, I want to discuss prioritization of efforts. The Department of Interior has a list of 50 critical minerals. The Department of Energy has a list of 18. The Defense Logistics Agency has a list of 62. When you combine the three lists, there are 13 minerals that all three consider critical. The existence of different lists makes prioritization for U.S. investment increasingly important. There should be a clear message to the private sector on where the focus should be to establish a unified approach to investing in the critical mineral supply chain. In your judgment, what critical minerals should the United States be targeting in Africa specifically, and how should we prioritize given today's supply chain vulnerabilities?
Yeah, that's a very helpful question, Senator. When we consider critical minerals, right, as you mentioned, there are so many that you could look at. Figuring out how to categorize them is a challenge. One way that I like to do it is I divide them sometimes into four kind of buckets. There's the battery metals like copper, lithium, cobalt, the rare earths that we've talked about, especially things like dysprosium and terbium for permanent magnets. You can create a category of kind of defense industrial needs minerals like antimony. And you can look at something like the low volume processing byproducts, gallium, germanium, scandium, which are a very interesting category because these are not mined directly, but they're acquired as kind of waste byproducts of smelting processes. And in China, for example, by legislation, many smelters have to capture gallium and germanium. It's expensive. It requires an investment to do that. In the West, outside of China, there's no such legal requirement, and so to do that requires some kind of incentive because these are, again, low volume but very important kinds of things. And so each of these categories that I've kind of depicted here all require sort of slightly different approaches to solve the problem behind them. But all of them are challenges, right? When we get back to the battery metals, copper, it's a scale problem in a sense, right? So the copper mines that we have in the United States, the grades are far lower than in a place like the DRC. So just for an example, in the United States, a copper mine might have a grade of like 0.3% of copper. Mines in the DRC have a copper grade of more like 2.5%, so like 8 times higher. So you can imagine how the economics of that is dramatically different. And so each of those requires very different kind of approaches, if you will. So I guess the bottom line message for all this is that it's important to keep in mind as we're talking about strategies for these minerals that there's not just one strategy out there. Each of these minerals is unique in their own way and will require kind of a different kind of approach, and we'll have to kind of sort them in different ways that make sense, like the way that I've outlined here below, but there are also other ways you could do it. But that is kind of one way to kind of think about how you would create the approach you would need by categorizing these things effectively.
I think that was a very helpful answer, and I hope that U.S. investors and companies listen to that answer that you just gave. I think that's helpful for prioritizing, and I hope also the administration gives weight to the answer you just gave, because if we don't prioritize, it means we're prioritizing nothing, and that's not a path to success. The final set of questions, Ambassador Pratt, I'm going to direct to you. The Trump administration has taken unprecedented steps to end more than 30 years of conflict in the eastern DRC. In the next month, the leaders of the DRC and Rwanda are expected to come to Washington and formally sign a peace agreement that includes the Regional Economic Integration Framework. This is not just a political deal. It's a chance for African nations to build real prosperity and keep their resources out of Beijing's grip. Critical minerals will play a major role in the final agreement. The DRC holds the largest concentration of cobalt in the world, plus large amounts of copper, lithium, tantalum, and more. If this peace deal holds, it's a real opportunity to bring stability to the region, to boost our African partners, and to safeguard U.S. interests, all while countering the Chinese Communist Party. 2 questions. What tangible commitments has the United States received from President Tshisekedi's administration for the U.S. DRC cooperation in critical minerals, number 1? And number 2, how can this agreement be used as the blueprint for future deals across the continent?
Thank you, Senator. We were blessed that at the beginning of this year when the conflict broke out, my colleague mentioned the assault on an area close to a tin mine where a U.S. company was operating. We got involved. I was with Senior Advisor Boulos when we brought the parties together. They were in Washington. We said, we need to stop this immediately, and that needs to be the first step. And that was where we began this peace process 4 months ago, 5 months ago now. The economic piece of this will deliver for U.S. companies, especially in lithium and cobalt that you mentioned, in central and southern Congo. It will also, because those offers have been made and they're in live negotiations with the government of the DRC right now. And so that's been successful, and those commitments are there. We also are hoping to formalize the coltan sector in eastern Congo so that we can have more involvement of U.S. companies, major U.S. companies that rely on coltan and their products, which right now aren't sourcing from coltan from eastern Congo because they know that it's coming from areas that have completely unacceptable labor standards, and that this is a totally informal sector approach. And so we hope that through this agreement, the countries will live up to their commitments. They have told us that they will, and part of the strategy of getting them to the White House once they're well on the road to implementing this agreement is that they live up to those commitments that they've made to us, including on formalization of the coltan sector in eastern Congo.
Thank you. That's helpful. Ranking Member Booker.